welcome to my progress of making my young Snow White skirt from Once Upon a Time. First of all, I need a frame for my skirt, and I start off using this small bustle pad that I use on my bell dress. Okay, I've taken this hoop, which was a basic round one, and from what I can see of the dress, it looks to be slightly more squashed than round. So you'll see this later on anyway, but this is just quickly showing there are ties in place. I actually pull the wire in a bit to make it a bit more squashed. So that's what I'll be basing the skirt around. It's best to have your frame first to work around it. This is the start of making this skirt. Here my fabric is approximately 3 meters 60 centimeters long from here all the way to the end, and it measures 1 meter 20 in width, which is still a little bit longer than we need. Next, cut a piece of light pink mesh tulle the same way that you cut the pink fabric, with exactly the same measurements.
Okay, having measured around the bottom of the hoop, we found for this particular dress it was going to be 3 meters 60. So basically we just cut a triangle of material 3 meters 60, and Tracy's measurement for the waist is 24.5 inches. So once it's all been pleated, we want that to finish with an extra inch to allow for an opening at the back. So this has all been pinned now into place, and that will be tacked down or machined, ready to go into the waistband.
Next thing to do is to get your tool and to pleat it the same way as you did the main skirt. After which I'm going to be joining the two skirts together at the top. Next on, making the waistband. First of all, as usual, I've cut my strip of fabric. Mine's about 26.5 inches long by 3 inches wide. Then I have some stiff tape here that needs to be not quite as long as your strip of fabric, because you'll be turning your ends in like so. Just fold your waistband in half and sew 1 centimetre in from the end of each edge like so, and for the other side as well. Next, turn your waistband inside out and poke the corners with something so you've got a nice sharp corner, and then give it a press with the iron. Okay, next of all you have to sew your band to the top of your skirt about 1 centimetre in. It can be very tricky doing the corners, so you might want to do those by hand, as I have done, to secure the start and ends in place, and just sew it all the way along to the other end.
Now we're going to put the Petersham or the weaving tape into your waistband and just tuck it up inside like so, right up to the corners. Fold that over where your crease is, and just put a pin there while I show you. Now you're going to turn over your waistband with a seam, and that is going to go over Petersham, and then you're going to hand sew it to the stitching that you can see just below, like so. And do that all the way across.
Okay, I've now finished putting the waistband in. What I'll be doing as well is putting some hooks and eyes at the ends, which is how I'm going to fasten my particular skirt on this dress. But you can choose whichever way you want to fasten it. Okay, next up I've sewn the seams on my tool and then again on my inside fabric. I've decided, after looking at the pictures, that her two skirts might be separate at the back as well, so that's why I've done two separate seams on both pieces. Don't forget to allow for a good split on your skirt, otherwise you have a bit of trouble getting it on and off. So I recommend just having somebody try it round you and see at which point you can get your skirt on and off.
Okay, now we're going to just connect up the net and neaten off the back opening that you've just done. I've just turned the seam under there for the skirt part, and then we're just going to now attach. It's a bit fiddly, sorry. This one wants to. Right, so now we want to neaten up the netting as well, so take that round, repin it like so, and go down a little bit further, put the seam around the back like so. Then what we're going to do is just put a running stitch just down the edge with the one side, and where you've done the other one, and to put a running stitch all the way up to the top to hold the two sections together. And to close the waistband we're going to use hooks and eyes, but it's entirely up to you what you use.
I'm now moving on to do the bottom of the skirt, where the trim is below all the decorative pieces, and I've decided to make a separate trim from the bottom as it looks and it stands up quite stiffly. So I originally started off with this about 9 centimetres wide, and the whole piece is about 4 metres long, which is much longer than the bottom circumference of my dress. So first of all, make sure you measure the bottom of your skirt all the way around so you know how long your strip's going to be. First of all, this edge has been overlocked and I've turned it over 1 centimetre. Next I bought some of this silver Lurex metallic trim, which is 6mm wide, and I'm going to sew it onto that trim. I was going to do 5 lines, but instead I've ended up with 4 because silly me didn't buy enough, but there we go. I then sewed these silver lines on individually one by one, starting at the bottom, working my way out to the top. As I did the top one, I turned the edge over. So this will then be just sewn onto the net, onto the outer skirt. Now sewn the trim onto the net all the way along the bottom of my dress. Next up, adding some decoration to the bottom of my skirt. Now, as I cannot see from the photographs exactly what pattern or what they've used around the bottom of the skirt, I asked Mum very kindly to whip me up some embroidery patches. Now, I went for this Indian paisley design because the fabric looks to be like sari fabric that they've used on the dress. Forgive me if I've pronounced that wrong because I don't know how to pronounce it, but anyway, I sort of went for this design, and she's used her embroidery machine to embroider these patches for me on some net, using some silver thread, and the thread was this one, Madeira, metallic, and there's all the information you need, and that's what was used to do the embroidery on the patches. Now next up, this has been left blank because I'm going to add some stones, like so, which will be sewn in. And I bought these from eBay. They were called rhinestones, and they were size 13 x 18mm in oval shape, clear crystal, flat black stones. And these were sew on, and I bought them from this seller. And they come in a packet like this, and they are glass crystal. They're not Swarovski, but they have a nice amount of shine to them. They're actually quite pretty. So I've gone ahead, and so far I've done about 15 patches. Some of them are done in one direction and some in another. I've been sewing them on to the patches. I'm roughly thinking I might need about 25, 26, possibly more, but we'll see. Next thing I'm doing in each one is I'm getting hold of some of this rope, piping, a sparkly silver cord, and I'm actually splitting it up because it's a bit too thick for me to use. So I'm taking one of the strands, and then I'm gluing it around the edge here using fabric glue, and I'm going to do that for each one. Now once they're finished, you just see here, I'm just starting pinning them onto the bottom of my skirt. I've decided on a design. I'm going to have two facing in that way, two facing out that way. I think works quite well. And then I'll be sewing these all the way down. I was going to put crystals on, but then I thought it might be easier, well, I don't have the crystals on, to actually sew around the edge. I might possibly do that on a machine. And then I'll be adding silver crystals all the way in, but I'll be spacing them out, which you'll see later. Okay, I've now finished decorating the appliques with some crystals. Also, after a trial run, we've ended up tacking this in places to the skirt itself because I had such an issue with walking in it, and this layer kept slipping lower and lower, that due to the weight probably of all the crystals, that we've actually, as I say in places, attached it to the skirt itself so they all move together, and I don't have so much trouble walking in it anymore. So we'll probably know for next time, if you should ever do a net overskirt with lots of weight at the bottom, it will pull on the net. So note for next time, if there should be one, make sure your skirt is slightly higher, and then the weight will pull it down. There we go. So that's my skirt finished. I've also added some crystals here and there